As a casual redditor that frequents the Avatar Last Airbender subreddit, I've come across several posts talking about the calisthenics champion, Azula. Most of these posts have to do with her character and whether or not she deserves redemption, likely due to the news about the new Azula comic rumored to be about her redemption arc. At one point, it almost seemed to be a cycle. Every other week, there was a post talking about Azula and redemption, and in the comments, there would be those in support of her redemption and those against her redemption. Over time, it seemed most of the discourse shifted to two extremes. Those that think she should be redeemed because all her wrongdoings were the result of her father, the evil Fire Lord Ozai. So of course she should be given a chance to be redeemed, and those who think she was born evil, a psychopath, a sociopath, mentally ill, and should not get redemption. There are some arguments that acknowledge the nuance of her character, like those that understand she's a sympathetic and tragic villain, and that's part of the beauty of her arc in connection to Zuko's arc. When it's put that way though, I think it's kinda sad. Zuko gets to have a happy ending, so why can't Azula? Because not every character needs a happy ending? I guess, but what if I want to see more of Azula? What if she's my favorite character, and I want to see what she's been up to all this time? But regardless of whether Azula gets a redemption arc, there are people wondering and asking whether or not she deserves one. I think the question of whether a character deserves a redemption arc is silly, so in this video, I'm going to explain why I think that. But before I do, I'm going to outline what I think makes a good redemption arc according to fellow internet dwellers, and see if that has anything to do with how people decide a character deserves one or not, because I think it does. So let's start with the definition. According to dictionary.com, redemption is the action of saving or being saved from sin, error, or evil. And according to Wiktionary, a redemption arc entails that the immoral character redeems themselves by making right their wrongdoings. So said character goes on some kind of journey to redeem themselves from their immoral ways. This may include confronting those they've harmed and apologizing, or doing good things as opposed to the evil things they'd previously been doing, in an effort to make up for it. Personally, this kind of arc is not interesting to me. Most of the time, I've seen these redemption arcs written in such a way that it's not a huge part of their overall arc, like it's just extra added on to their entire arc as a way of giving things a somewhat happy ending. But we'll ignore that for now. Okay, so what about characters deserving redemption? What does it mean for a character to deserve redemption? Spoiler alert, just be Zuko. Based on what I've seen on internet discourse, the character has to be the one to initiate their redemption. They have to be willing to change. They have to be the one that makes the first step. They have to be repentant. Their wrongdoing shouldn't be so wrong that it's impossible for them to be forgiven. Forgiven by the audience, I mean. It doesn't matter if the other characters in the show can forgive them. What matters is the audience. The actions they take to redeem themselves should outweigh all the bad they did. They shouldn't have done too many bad things. For example, if they did many bad things or one really big bad thing, they have to make up for it by doing multiple good things over time. A character will deserve redemption if it makes sense in the narrative to get one. Essentially, to deserve redemption is to have the potential to have a successful redemption arc, a good redemption arc. Okay, great, but what makes a good redemption arc? What makes redemption arcs interesting? Well, let's look at Zuko. Zuko is often heralded as the gold standard when it comes to redemption arcs, but I think the reason Zuko's redemption arc works so well is because it's not solely a redemption arc, it's actually just his character arc. Throughout the entire show, he's shown to be at conflict with himself and his role as the crown prince. He wanted to regain his honor because he thought that would bring him peace. He thought it was his destiny to capture the Avatar, bring him back to his lame-ass dad, and then he would be happy, and everything would be fine. Throughout his arc though, he began to realize that this would not make him happy. That wasn't his actual destiny. His destiny was to help Aang and his gang to stop the Fire Nation and end the 100-Year War. His banishment allowed him to break free of Fire Nation indoctrination. He was able to witness the harms that the Fire Nation had been causing and realize that things needed to change. Zuko, to begin with, wasn't shown to be a bad person. He didn't fit in. He didn't have the Fire Nation mindset, so he was cast out. He wanted to redeem himself in the eyes of his father by regaining his honor, by capturing the Avatar. He wanted to make right the wrong he did by speaking out of turn. His arc is him breaking out of this. Zuko's redemption arc can be seen as a redemption of the Fire Nation, to save from evil the Fire Nation that had wronged not only the other nations, but the Fire Nation itself, himself, and his family for years. In contrast, another character that gets a redemption arc is Catra, and some people think her redemption arc is a bad one. When people criticize her redemption arc, they typically say the following things. She was forgiven and accepted too quickly. She didn't apologize to Glimmer for what happened to her mom. Her redemption sends the bad message that you can and should forgive your abuser, and more time was needed to complete her redemption arc. Some people even think that she didn't deserve redemption. These points view Catra's arc as a redemption arc and not simply a character arc. Catra is a complex character, and I think these points diminish her character arc because they solely view her arc from a redemption standpoint, which I think is not the point of her character arc. These types of arguments against Catra's character, especially those that claim she's an abuser and a toxic partner, even after she's no longer exhibiting these toxic and abusive behaviors, is kinda anti-change and anti-redemption. It's against giving people a chance and the grace to change and grow as a person. You might say that Catra's narrative arc is sending the message that you have to do this in real life, that as a victim of abuse you have to forgive and forget and get back with your abusive partner. Keep in mind that Adora and Catra reconcile after Catra is out of that toxic environment that was causing her to spiral. Forgiving someone who hurt you, partially because they were hurt themselves, is good, as long as the person shows that they're no longer going to have those harmful behaviors. I've noticed that when some people claim a redemption arc is a good one, they're focused on one major thing: believability. With a good redemption arc like Zuko's, the redemption must be successful in the end. For a character to be successfully redeemed, the audience has to be able to forgive them, and they also have to get punished in some kind of way. The character has to apologize for what they did, either through actions or outright verbally apologizing. They have to perform some grand action that shows their willingness to change. They can't just do one really big good thing and then they're off the hook. They can't also just die after they do the good thing. This ties into the scale of their bad behavior. If the character commits, say, genocide, it would be hard for people to believe they can be redeemed, because there's no one good thing you can do to make up for taking away that many lives. The character can't be forgiven too quickly by those they hurt. If they're forgiven too quickly, some might say this is a reflection on the author, and that the author is condoning that bad behavior. The audience likely has felt personally offended by the character's actions, so their apology must be satisfying to the audience. If the audience is not able to forgive the character, then the character is deemed irredeemable in their eyes. One important factor of the believability of redeemability is whether or not the characters are written sympathetically. The audience has to be able to sympathize with the character to make their redemption believable. Their actions have to be understandable. However, this is subjective. Some people can't extend sympathy to certain characters, sometimes acting like the evil action committed personally affected them, and will therefore believe that the character is unforgivable and irredeemable. For the audience to sympathize with the character, that character must have shown a hint of goodness, so that when the chance comes for redemption, it's somewhat consistent with their character, as in they weren't all bad all along. With sympathetic antagonists, the audience is better able to understand the character's motivations and thus are more ready to accept their redemption. With regards to punishment, people essentially want to see the character suffer for what they've done. If they get off scot-free, that's not fair. They need to pay for what they've done. They need to go to jail, or they just need to suffer in some way and hurt like how they hurt other people. If they don't suffer, then they need to be forever in debt. They need to be indebted to those they've harmed and must repay that debt. If they don't, that's not fair. Also, that debt has to scale with the amount of harm they've caused. And careful, if it doesn't scale, it could mean that they're being absolved of their crimes. Since I've talked about Zuko and Catra, let's compare fan reception of their redemption arcs. In Zuko's case, he follows these rules for a good redemption arc. He's shown that he's willing to change, and he apologizes for his past actions by committing several good actions. He helps Aang learn firebending, helps Sokka rescue his dad and Suki, and helps Katara on her quest for closure. Even though he apologizes, the gang aren't quick to forgive him, at least not all of them. He also gets punished, his punishment being not getting accepted quickly into the group. He's an outcast at first, until he proves that he's changed by apologizing through actions. Only after he does enough good actions is he accepted. Zuko is written sympathetically, where the audience can understand why he does bad things, so we can accept when he turns over a new leaf, because, well, he wasn't actually all that bad all along. He has a good heart. In Catra's case, apparently, she doesn't follow the believability rule, at least according to some fans. She doesn't directly apologize to those she's hurt. She shows no willingness to change. You could count her helping Glimmer escape Port Prime as a grand action to atone for her past mistakes, but no, actually, that would just be the climactic moment where she begins her path to change her ways. Wait a minute. The best friend squad wastes no time in accepting her. She's quickly forgiven. And because of this, the author is sending the message that you should accept people despite their history of harming you, even though Catra is accepted by the best friend squad after she's shown that she's willing to change. Catra doesn't get punished for continuously trying to kill Adora and her friends and conquering the kingdoms of Etheria, even though she gets her free will blocked by Horde Prime and dies. Some audience members have had people in their lives that behave the way Catra has. Therefore, they might find it harder to sympathize because they may once have been on the receiving end of wrongdoing similar to Catra's. In this case, Catra doesn't follow the pathway for a good redemption arc because she commits crimes that the audience can more easily project someone they know in real life onto. For example, some people have met someone like Catra in real life. Some people have met someone like Azula in real life. People like the Diamonds or even Ozai have existed in real life, and those people are deplorable, so the audience thinks they deserve no redemption. Whenever there's an attempt at redemption for a character, there comes the inevitable comparison with Zuko's character arc. I think this is not good because you would be comparing two different arcs. Most characters who go through a redemption arc, unlike Zuko's redemption arc, will fail in their redemption when compared to Zuko. Zuko's entire arc contains undertones of redemption. Catra's entire arc is not solely meant to be a redemption arc, so I think it's unfair to compare the last portion of the series where she switches sides to something like Zuko's arc. Zuko is given depth that humanizes him so the audience can sympathize and maybe empathize. He's also shown to be conflicted in his actions and has been greatly wronged by a parent. He's painted as not all that bad. Catra, on the other hand, is not painted in such a light. Although she's given depth that humanizes her and has also been wronged by a parent, some people can't welcome her redemption because, well, she just didn't suffer enough for her crimes. Unlike Zuko, who did several good things while he was an antagonist, Catra did not, and she's never really shown to be conflicted with her actions, or have a sound moral compass, unlike Zuko. Point is, Zuko shouldn't be treated as the gold standard for redemption arcs, and we should avoid treating his character development arc as solely a redemption arc, because that's not all that it is. Characters are meant to evolve and change throughout the course of a story. Sometimes that means they become better than who they were before. Character development is just what happens naturally. This is different from a redemption story. Redemption implies the character is actively trying to change. The difference between the two is the intention to change, a desire to atone for past actions. Zuko's arc is a redemption arc, sure, but it's also just his growth as a character. Catra's arc is not a redemption arc, but actually just her growing as a character. Her character evolves throughout the story, just as characters should. Closer to the end of her arc, she came close to achieving success, but ended up losing the few people left she cared about. After accomplishing everything she thought she ever wanted, she still left feeling empty. She realizes that it wasn't worth it, so she does something to salvage things. Then after this, she goes on a journey to find what she really wanted and needed: friendship and a non-toxic environment. This is not necessarily a redemption arc, but it is a character arc. As Bob Salfaris put it, all redemption arcs are character development, but not all character development is a redemption arc. Redemption arcs can be written for any character. It's essentially up to whoever's writing the story to give the character a redemption arc, to grant the opportunity for redemption. It doesn't matter how evil the character is, there is a way to write the arc. However, that isn't to say that it will be a compelling arc. According to my epic pathway for a good redemption arc, you can't just write the evil character and then give them a redemption arc at the end. The audience won't find that satisfying. The opportunity for redemption must be built into the character. The character must be written in a way that allows for redemption later on. Can the audience forgive them? Can the audience sympathize with them? Is there a willingness to change? Will they face adequate punishment? In Azula's case, those against her redemption arc cite all her wrongdoings as irredeemable. They cite that she never demonstrated the willingness to change her actions, so she doesn't deserve one. But the writers could simply write an inciting incident that provides an opportunity for that, and begin her journey from there. It's not a matter of whether a character deserves one, but a matter of whether it would make for an interesting, compelling arc to begin with. To say that a character doesn't deserve redemption is to deprive them of the opportunity to get one, an opportunity for them to realize the error of their ways and begin their journey to become a better person. I think that no one really deserves redemption, as it's up to them to begin that journey for themselves anyways. It's up to them to show a willingness to change and right their wrongs. Personally, I'm indifferent to whether or not Azula is redeemed. I like her character, she's entertaining, and I would like to see more of her. It would be nice if she was given some more development. It doesn't have to be a redemption arc in the generic sense, one where she goes on a journey to atone for her past actions and in the end comes out a good guy. That would be boring in my opinion. Just something that gives her the avenue to develop as a person would be nice. She gets something similar to this in the comics. She's still shown to be a menace, trying to mess with Zuko's reign as Fire Lord. She's also given an arc where she confronts her mother, who doesn't remember who she is. She's given plot, something to do, and the opportunity to develop her character. If the writers really wanted to write an arc where she goes on a journey to atone for her wrongdoings, they could totally do it, and that would be fine. Or they could just write a character development arc for her, a plot where she changes at the end of it, maybe not necessarily into a good guy and part of the gang, but to someone different, however small the difference may be, and that would simply be character development. With all that said, this is a comment on a video that prompted me to ignore my studies and write the script. The video was about character redemption arcs, good redemption arcs, bad redemption arcs, and Catra. The commenter points out that redemption arcs, or the outcome of redemption attempts, are framed as binary options. If a character does bad things and is a bad person, there are only two options for them at the end of the story: redemption or punishment. It's either a journey to redeem themselves or they get punished. Some people are so sick of redemption arcs that they want to see more irredeemable villains, so they praise Jack Horner from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish for not getting one and instead meeting his demise at the end. Jack Horner, however, is not written sympathetically. He has no added nuance to his character, so I feel indifferent to the way he meets his end. Azula is written with some nuance to her character. There's room for development. Thus, some believe she should be allowed to obtain redemption. Those against Azula's redemption arc believe that her actions are too irredeemable. She's done too much evil for them to forgive her, or they just want to see her as a villain. Which, yeah, sure, she serves the narrative purpose of being a villain, but the narrative in which she serves that purpose is over, so why not something new? So the alternative is punishment, and her punishment would be for her mind to remain in a fractured state, continue to suffer from hallucinations, remain imprisoned, and Zuko would want nothing to do with her. Those that plead for Azula's redemption arc are those that don't want to see her continue to suffer. They want to see her heal from her past. So to prove she does deserve a redemption arc, they argue that she was abused by Ozai and did all the bad things she did because she wanted Ozai's approval, framing her as having less agency. I'm guilty of this as well. They're characters that I have great amount of sympathy for. I think I'm going to put that in text on the screen. The commenter adds that people rarely entertain the idea that a character's suffering could end without either, like having the character simply stop doing bad things and hanging around the good guys until they're considered friends. But I think it's because arcs that should be considered as just character development are treated as redemption arcs. To summarize, I think there should be less of a focus on redemption arcs and more of a focus on character development arcs. Characters should be able to change their ways, but not have to go on an epic Zuko-like journey for forgiveness. This also doesn't mean they need to be severely punished for their actions either. I think it depends on what the story needs. Jack Horner doing evil things was entertaining, and I think he was meant to be just that, a flat, static, but entertaining character. He had no growth and minimal character development. If you want to add depth and growth to a character who does evil things in your story, go for it, but it doesn't have to be in the form of a redemption arc. If you simply want an entertaining character who is evil because it's fun to watch evil hijinks sometimes, then they can meet their demise at the end. Or not. Although it's more satisfying to the audience if they do. That would just be a flat and or static character, and those are fine, just don't have too many of them. Azula was given depth and complexity to her character that can be explored further. It doesn't have to be a redemption arc, but it can be a character arc.